I'm a fan of fantasy, so I listen to Easy and Alan on their Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. During the show, you can live chat with Easy and Alan at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Rumour has it, Lenny only swings one way, with Launch Angle. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
And welcome to another Wednesday night on a Fantasy Fan Sportscast, where we are live on YouTube and the LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. And that Heineken just hit me there, Chris.
We're off to a rough start.
Yeah, we have. I've had a long night on the. I don't think you can say the radio, right? But
not if it's a show, I guess.
Well, but it was. I mean, I had to use my voice or something. I don't know. But no, I've been active already tonight out there on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Network. We had a great time doing a Halloween show. Mm-hmm. Or reading. I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure I was acting, but I had fun. It was a blast. We had a good time. They're going to edit, do stuff. It'll be up there someday, and I'll play it for you, Chris. You'll get to listen to it because I'm Le'Veon Bell. I sing a little bit of rap.
Oh, good.
You know, what do you mean no business? You just really don't buy my rapping skills?
I don't know what your rapping skills are.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, oh goodness.
But I can tell you they probably are exactly what you think they are. So
I'm assuming yes. But I'm interested. I'm interested.
You are now? You are now?
Yeah.
It was fun. I mean, it was a bunch of different characters. Like I said, I was Le'Veon Bell was one of my characters, and Ball, but I was getting right. I can't not say Le'Veon Ball, but the basketball player, you know, that LeBron's going to win a ring for, and all that stuff. So it was a blast. And I was Gordie Howe, which you didn't even know was a hockey guy. But how many hockey guys do you know? Let's just go there real quick. First of all, welcome Chris from FFCouchCoach.com, 444, Chris Allen at WFX something tornadoes.com, wherever you're from. All right. I'm already wound up. I apologize. Chris, how are you doing tonight? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX, and then all of my work is on 444.
All right, all of it now. That's where that's your home. You're putting your stakes down.
No. I mean, 444 will be just the spot where I do my in-season work, and then all of my off-season research. You'll find some stuff on 444, some stuff on Fantrax. 2QBs.
You're everywhere. You're so important. I'm nowhere. I'm just here and on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network in the chat room, which you now every once in a while I see out there. That's kind of nice.
I'll stop in.
The network, they're going to start a full-blown network after the first of the year, the Legend Sports Network. They're gearing up they're rolling out mainly big time with the beginning of the baseball season, but trust me, Easy will keep their nose into the football grind. They're going to have writers. They got correspondents, I think, now for all the major baseball teams and all that. So it's going to be pretty neat. A lot of stuff growing, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And and maybe we keep you in there, and like I said, I'm going to need help keeping football interested. There are a lot of baseball guys out there.
That's what I heard. I heard that primarily the chat is baseball oriented. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. But we do talk. There are multiple football shows right now. There's a football show. Lou does one on Tuesday mornings now. There's JJ Wirtz does a show every day from Tuesday through Friday at 2:00, and he does a little bit of everything: football, baseball, college. It goes about 3 hours. There's Lou also does another Saturday morning. Where they talk all football stuff. Then me and Lou do a Sunday afternoon show where we're doing start-sit stuff. So. There's a lot of football out there right now. Lenny does baseball Monday through Friday. Monday, I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 9, and then he does. I think he's starting to do now a Tuesday night baseball show.
With the World Series and stuff being completely over.
Yeah, they talk baseball 24/7. I mean, it's just like me and you could talk fantasy football just about every week of the year if we wanted.
I mean, that's true, but I just figured that most of the like daily shows would kind of, because after football season's over, most podcasts they go on a break for a little bit, after the season's over, and then come back in a little bit.
The Arizona Fall League has started. I mean, you have right now. See, baseball's a little different. Football, football waits a little while before contracts start.
Yeah.
Baseball, these guys, the way their contracts are written. I mean, Kershaw just pitched in the World Series, and he has 24 hours now to accept his deal or not. So we're already.
I did see that. Yeah, I thought I saw.
So and the Arizona Fall League is when you're watching for rookies and stuff like that. I mean,
that seems nonstop. Goodness,
it is. Again, it's really no different than football. It's just a matter of which one you're into. You know what I'm saying? I mean, again, me and you can talk football. I'm pretty sure 52 weeks a year if we wanted to. We can figure out something. Yeah. And to me, if you add the fantasy twist to it, there's always something you can talk about. So,
absolutely.
I'm just saying they're getting ready to go full blown network after the first of the year, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And like I said, they allow me to do a few shows. This show we do separate kind of, but do put it on through their site and everything, and I appreciate that. And then I do the roundtable show is hysterical. It's a blast. That's Tuesday nights. You need to come to that because it goes on all night. It's just a bunch of people bullshitting about sports and fantasy and a lot of arguments. Last night I could have used you because they weren't buying. Last night's debate was on the best off-season sport, meaning which of the sports has the best off-season. I definitely went with the football because my argument was TV has proven football was better because everything football does in the off-season is on television and you can watch. Everything that baseball does, yes, it's out there, but they don't televise it because only baseball people are into it. But
true,
I lost the argument. There was four baseball people and me. I lost, so I could have used you last night, Chris. I could have.
I apologize. Then we'll have to next time you get into an argument like that, I'll have to come to your aid.
The round table's fun because I don't allow anybody to bring a topic, or everyone can bring a topic, but we don't share the topic until we're in the room. That way, nobody, because, again, I know we're talking about another show, but I want it to be more like a bar. When you go sit down with your buddy, you don't really know what topic's going to come up when you're drinking a beer at the bar, and sometimes those are the best topics. You don't want to sit down thinking your buddy had all day to Google shit and he's got all these facts to fight you against. Yeah. So, we don't. So to say you're going to come someday based on the topic, we don't know a topic until we sit down. And
that's like going to a bar.
Exactly. And I keep telling them this is bar style. We all get down. Usually a couple of us have drinks. There's been a few that bring other substances, but we do sit down and, it's 5-6 people, some cases that, we just all talk sports. So it's a blast. So come out and join us. And one more show I have to plug for Double A. He's out there Thursdays, a very, very, very adult show. But Chris, you have to tune in 7:00 on a Thursday night and listen to Thursday. Thirsty Thursday is a bar drinking girl whore. I can't get into it because we're not we don't go there, but it is hysterical. Very, very adult, very educational, and I do think they throw some sports in. Even it's, I would recommend it. It's fun. Then they have Hangover Friday. We have Thursday, and then Hangover Friday. So, enough plugging, everybody. Easy's had enough plugging for one night. I think Double A is out there. If you'll know Double A's in the chat room, Chris, when you start reading things like full blown AIDS or other language in his tweets. He's always a guest. But we all know it's him when he's there. So let's talk. Sports. We got a lot to talk about. Main topic tonight's just we're going to talk a lot about the trades, the trade deadlines, how it affects fantasy. It was a busy trade deadline, but you know me, I like to start with a few sports things first. And we talked about her a while back, and Simone Biles. I don't know if you paid attention to what she did this last weekend.
No, I didn't hear about it.
She is our gymnast. That I think when we talked about her, 3 or 4 months ago, she broke every record. She won by 12 points, which was huge.
Hell of a gymnast.
And all that. Last weekend at and I meant to write down, but I didn't. I think the Nationals for the world. So it is one of the gymnastics, one of their big events. She won the overall while suffering a kidney stone.
Lord have mercy.
So obviously the kidney stone came up right when the event was starting, and obviously there was no way to, to do anything with it other than to just, perform with it. I don't know
how.
If you've ever had a kidney stone.
No.
I have family members that have them. It's I could not imagine, based on the family members I have, I have a daughter that has a kidney stone problem because of a disease she has, and then I have a father-in-law or a step dad who has a lot of kidney issues, and it's miserable. I mean, they are miserable to a point where almost all the time you end up at a hospital or emergency room or something where they.
That's all I've ever heard when it comes to those.
And here. She's an Olympic athlete, one of the best of all time, and she wins the overall while she has kidney stones. I mean, it was
That's insane.
Pretty amazing. I heard it was going on, turned on and watched a little bit. You could tell she was suffering. It was, pretty amazing. Yeah. Kidney stone sucks bad. Farrell JD says, I agree. So that's a bit, I thought, people like that deserve their name, even in a show like this, where, one person's listening or 20 or 100, who knows how many people are listening to us, but
that's news to me. Yeah. I'm glad you told me about that, because that's amazing.
The other person who doesn't really need to know much or hear is here in Ohio, big deal that the Cavaliers fired their head coach. Any comment? I know we've talked about this. You were, a LeBron guy a little bit, but what do you think about our professional basketball team, coaching issues?
I mean, it's interesting that they waited to do this, 5 games into the season?
That always gets me. To me, at least commit for 60 days or something.
That's before. Yeah, sure. I understand. I mean, they opened up, I thought, like 0-4, 0-5 or something like that.
They ended up 4-6 before they actually fired him.
Yeah, they won last night, though, I thought.
Yes, but they were 0-6 when they fired him, then won.
They were 0-6 fired him. Yeah, sure. So, I mean, but if you look at the players, I mean, even just their starting 5 and even some of their bench players, I mean, to be quite honest with you, what was Ty supposed to do? I did. I mean, and if you look at the Cavaliers, not the Cavaliers, the Lakers' woes. I mean, the Lakers started off 0-3,
right?
So I mean, and they've got some of the best talent in the world, and they were firing their head coach.
In their 0-3 start, they played 3 playoff caliber teams too. I mean, that was a tough start for LeBron and the gang.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of weird that going into the season, they knew what they had as a coaching unit. They knew what they had for their players, but yet after 6 games, it's like, they're already ready to jump ship, and it's like, right. I don't understand that philosophy.
I know, because to me, I agree. The Reds did it years back, where they fired somebody after like the first week, and you're like, same thing. You know what? You didn't. Why do it? Either go a little while, or if you know it's coming, you fire them before the season, and you get something going. Farrell JD says he shattered his femur in 12 pieces.
Yeah, I saw that.
Less than a kidney stone.
Uh-huh.
So I'm assuming to do gymnastics with a kidney stone is a pretty big thing. Interim coach, I got a feeling he's not going to be the head coach unless something major happens.
Yeah, doubt it.
But again, I think this is a team that has a player problem, not a coach problem.
No, I think that it's more of a talent problem than anything else. I mean, if they were able to. I would assume that even if they kept Ty for, let's say, even half the season, I'm pretty sure that they would at least be able to get to 500. That's my assumption. I don't think that, like, while losing LeBron is a big deal, like they're not a playoff caliber team anymore because you need that leadership, you need that talent. I would at least think that they'd be able to get to 500 by the end of the season.
Right. I mean, we'll see. Again, I'm not the biggest Cavs fan in the world.
Yeah, it's just odd.
I obviously followed them more when LeBron was there. Again, people say that all the time. What people I talk to in sports that I talk to customers all across the country. So people always say, when Cleveland does something or LeBron, I'm like, I'm such a Cincinnati fan that Cleveland doesn't even count to me in almost any sport. I'm just to me, that's Canada.
I mean, pretty much.
Even when they win the championship, I didn't care. I mean, I did for LeBron, but I didn't care that it was Cleveland.
No, that's the point. I mean, because I was happy when Miami won it because it was LeBron, and then I was happy when he came back and they won it because it was LeBron.
Right. So that's another sport. I'm going to kind of go we're going to do football and college combined here. I wanted your opinion. I think this happened since our last show, and that's I was going to say Joey Bosa, but it's not his brother there at Ohio State. What do you think about one of the Bosa brothers,
Nick,
deciding not to come back to his college team and go ahead and really just pursue professional at this time? I mean, I've heard good, bad. I mean, you hear a lot of things. I'm just curious what your opinion is. Is this the wrong thing to do for a teammate, or is this the right thing to do for a career?
I think it's the right thing for him to do it for a career. If I'm understanding the reports correctly, he wasn't going to be ready until at least for another few weeks anyway. That's the last that I had heard.
I heard he would be back as possibly the Michigan game, which obviously is a game we could use him in.
Absolutely. I heard that was the earliest he was going to be back, and that wouldn't even be, and that's not even assuming he'd be 100% by that time. So I think that for his career, everybody already knew that he was talented, just like his brother. I think that he did the right thing, and he needed to get right and make sure that he was available for the draft next year.
You say that as a football fan? As a Buckeye fan, I'm like, man, unfortunately, the 3 games we were going to need him the most in were going to be the games we needed him the most in. It was going to be Michigan. If we win that, it's going to be the championship of the Big Ten. And if we win that, we still have a chance to be, in the championship tournament. So, you know what? I don't know. I see it both ways. As a big Buckeye fan, I see it. Obviously, as a career person, it's hard to argue with his decision. But
yeah, I'm all for some of these players making sure that they're putting themselves in the best position to get paid. Because you're not doing that, and you're not getting paid in college.
Right. I mean, that's going to be one of the topics we're going to have here in the next week or so on one of the roundtables. We're going to talk about college kids getting paid. So that's going to be one of the things that we do talk about. But now let's go back to Joey, because this is somebody that just can't stay healthy. And I've heard rumors now with him is, the team really thought he'd be back by now, but, and I've heard both people that are like, well, he really doesn't want to come back yet, and blah, 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 saying, is he doing the same thing his brother's doing, but in a different way? Meaning, like, I might as well sit out 2 or 3 more games instead of come back. And I get it, risking more injury, or do you learn to play through injury? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there is a fine line there with athletes.
Yeah, and I understand that. But I think when it comes to, I don't know, is it just me, or do the Chargers have this knack for having players get, like, seriously injured? And like they can't return like almost year after year. Like they just have this knack for having these high talented players that wind up getting injured and they're out for like seasons or like months.
Doctor, but the word soft tissue is, I don't know. I've never heard the word soft tissue so much than the last couple of years. And this year, I mean, a lot of soft tissue, hey,
when it comes to, just for some reason the whatever water they're drinking at the Chargers facility, man, it seems to be really bad.
It's not. It's everybody. I mean, Fournette, Cooks. I mean, there's just. I mean,
but if you look at the Chargers,
she's not even hard.
The Chargers lost Jason Verrett. They wound up losing. They lost their starting left guard. Last year it was, what was it? Keenan Allen. It was. Melvin Gordon was down for a little bit. I mean, he's got the bone-on-bone thing. They lost Hunter Henry the first day of practice this year. I mean, they wind up losing so many people, and it just always happens to be the Chargers. Right. But I think from his standpoint, try and make sure you're as healthy as possible. I don't think he's gaming the system or anything, but I do think it's important that players put themselves in the position to be as healthy as possible. I mean, some players, they play through injury, and I understand that. But if it's something as serious as what Bosa is dealing with, I think it's important that he gets himself at least to 100% before he tries to go back out there and hurt himself even more.
Right. All right. So you're taking the side that the Bosas both are doing the right thing, and it's not that they're, they're like, I mean, obviously Joey's already got paid, so he doesn't really even have to play. And now, did he tell his brother, hey, you know what? You don't need, meaning, let's say his brother wasn't Joey Bosa. I mean, I don't think, because obviously I do think he's very good, Nick, and I do think he should be drafted up near the top. But I do think having that family name already, associated with a high quality player does move him up in the draft. I just believe that. I mean, so if your big brother's telling you to, hey, don't worry. The Buckeyes didn't care about me after I left either, so don't worry about it. I don't know.
Well, there might be something to that, but I think for the most part, I think the game, like the defensive coordinators he'll need to show out at the combine. He might sit out for the next few months, but he needs to be able to perform at either his pro day.
Do you think? He's a player that if he decided, hey, I'm not going to do the combine because it'll just hurt me. Meaning, if he does nothing else now, I still believe if he does nothing else, he'll be drafted still in the top 10.
I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of. I think he'll fall to the late first if he winds up still getting drafted in the first. I don't think he'll be drafted top 10 if he doesn't play for the next 3 months, and then he also skips both the combine and his pro day. I just can't see him still being drafted top 10 just on his name. I mean, that puts their foot in the door, but to be top 10, I mean, he would really have to show out and still prove that he has that talent afterwards. That's my opinion.
To be top 10. All right. Because, the money really changes after the top 10. I mean, obviously the first few, then the top 10, the way it breaks down. So, you want to go in that top 10. So, yes, I agree. You want to be prepared for that.
I can see a late first for him, but like an early first for him, after not doing any of that stuff, like no game tape, like no senior year game tape.
Oh, he played a few games, and again, me, I can never remember names. Who's the guy that played for South Carolina, the lineman that didn't play his whole senior year and still went number 1 or in the top 3? Was
it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Fowler?
And no, he now somebody in the chat room will tell me, played for South Carolina, and if I'm not mistaken, he's on the Chargers now, and he's one of their rushers. I could have it wrong, but
Ingram? Melvin Ingram?
No. A defensive end. I'll think of it here in a minute. I was.
Well, that's the only other one that they had that I can recall off the top of my head.
It was South Carolina. It was the because you remember his junior year, the tape was where he just blew up that the one quarterback and all that, and then he came back to South Carolina and just didn't do it. I mean, he really set out almost his whole senior year and still was drafted, in the top 3. So, All right. Let's go real quick. Just news tidbits. Le'Veon Bell. Are we going to see him at all this year?
No.
On the field, I still think he's a fool if he doesn't at least sign that contract and get a year.
Oh, yeah, I think he's a fool for not doing it, but I don't think he's going to play.
But you think Pittsburgh's going to pay him not to play, though?
No, I don't think he's going to sign his tender, and I don't think he's going to play. I think he's done. And
Connor is definitely their number 1.
And he'll be the guy. Yeah, and he'll just be the guy.
He's proved it.
Yep.
What about? Go ahead and talk a few minutes about a few of the injuries. I have a dog I have to get off the couch that's whining over here.
Oh, my goodness.
Go through a few of the injuries real quick and give me 1 second.
Okay.
Go.
Fine. All right. So what are the injuries that we've got going on right now? So at least from Cincinnati, since they just played this past week, we've got AJ Green that's dealing with a possible turf toe issue. And so he was seen in a boot, I believe, earlier yesterday. So that's something to watch.
And Latonya Bell did say today on some other podcast I heard her on that they did verify it is definitely the same right toe that he hurt 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know everyone right now, or at least AJ came out and said that he's supposed to be fine. And it's luckily enough, they're on their bye week. So we probably won't hear anything until next week. So let's see. Mike Evans, he's dealing with a knee / leg injury that happened towards the end of the game last week. And he didn't practice at all today, but it's still Wednesday. I'm assuming he'll be back for a limited practice. But if not, my eyebrows raised after that. So that's something to watch. I think that's pretty much it in terms of, let's see, who's dealing with a shoulder injury. Adrian Peterson's dealing with a shoulder injury. He was out of practice today.
He had a hell of a week, though.
Oh, yeah, he had a great weekend. I mean, doing it at.
Yeah, I have him to talk about him. Obviously, we'll just do that real quick. I mean, he was week 8. He was the leading running back as far as fantasy points and everything. Not bad for an old man that wasn't drafted in most fantasy leagues. You know, and even when he came back and got signed, because obviously at the beginning of the season he wasn't even signed, and most people still laughed and went, "Nah, no way." You know, we counted him out, and you know, most people either got him late in their drafts or they drafted very late, or you know, picked him off waivers. And you know, he's definitely paying off for anybody who has him.
Oh, sure.
You know, so pretty amazing. Now, what about the injuries that have happened earlier of people who are on bye this week? Obviously, we have Fournette, we have Cooks. Well, Cooks isn't on a bye, but they're, you know, I think their bye is week 10 maybe. They're thinking he will come back. Do you have any information, or what do you think?
Limited practice today for Dalvin Cook, if I'm not mistaken. He was at least seen on the field during practice.
Right, and Fournette, I think, is definitely on a bye. So they're on a bye. Those are the two big running backs. Are they cuttable? You're still keeping them. I think Fournette's still keepable. Cooks, I don't think you can cut either one of them, but I don't know. Are you going to be able to trust Cooks? You know, come playoff time for fantasy.
Sure. I mean, I think it's really one of the things that Minnesota really needs.
Even when he's been healthy this year.
No, I think in his first game back, I think he played well, but even then he was somewhat on a pitch count. So even then, I don't think he wasn't effective. I still think he looked he looked fine as a runner during the early parts of the game, but it didn't turn into a ton of fantasy production. But I still think he still got the vision, he still got the juke, he still got the ability to maneuver around. But I think really I would still keep Cook, because I think that the big thing for the Vikings is that because their offensive line is so poor, they need a back that can actually both run between the tackles and also move outside. Latavius Murray, while he's serviceable as both a pass catcher and a runner, he doesn't have the same lateral speed and agility that Dalvin Cook has. So with Kirk Cousins being, I think, the top most, he has the most pressures in terms of a quarterback, they need somebody that's just a little bit better in terms of speed and agility, and that's Dalvin Cook. So I wouldn't drop
Dalvin Cook if he's 100%.
Yes, they need him if he's 100%, and they're going to continue to hold him out until he is that way. And I think the offense is still performing fairly well without him, but I think that's their missing piece at this point, is that they don't have somebody that can move within the offense like he can.
Right. And the good thing is that's a team that's definitely, obviously, you know, a real good shot at being in the playoffs and everything. So they're going to need their players. You know, so I mean, obviously right now it's just they're throwing the ball everywhere, you know.
They have no other option. I mean, really, without
Thielen and Diggs. So, and even their defense hasn't been as good as they thought it would be, but you know, it's been fun to watch. I don't, when you talked injury while I was letting my dog off the couch, I think quarterback wise, don't we have San Francisco and the Bills both have quarterbacks that are down? I mean, Anderson now, you know, came off the couch, played a week, and now he's hurt. So we're back to Peterson, maybe. I said it in the chat room earlier today. I think right now they just signed their best quarterback this weekend. You know, they got a wide receiver and a quarterback in Pryor, and I'm not sure he would do any worse or better. I would rather see him, because if he's behind the center, you know he's going to run the ball and do some stuff, and he can throw the ball. He's not going to be, I don't know, he can't be worse than Peterman when it comes to throwing the ball.
I mean, you'd think, because even when Terrell Pryor was in Oakland, I mean, he was still a serviceable fantasy quarterback, like when he was still in Oakland, and that was still under John DeFilippo, if I'm not mistaken, who's now the offensive coordinator for the Vikings. Right. But
do you think it was even a thought in their mind that at least at this point they need somebody else? If somebody comes in and gets hurt, they have somebody that can play quarterback?
No.
You don't think at all? That it didn't cross their mind at all?
It's too late. They're already pot committed at this point. If they're going to go and sign a dude that was sitting on his couch and
right, that's my point. So why wouldn't Pryor be just as good 2 weeks from now? That's smart. I mean, all right.
Nope.
Do you think, because he's a Buckeye, it's not the reason we're talking about him, do you think he has obviously no fantasy value whatsoever. Does he help that team at all?
I mean, the team can't help themselves, so I don't think Terrell Pryor isn't going to be one of the people that are going to help them. No, they need a complete. I mean, a complete offensive shift than what they're doing right now, like a complete overhaul in order to start performing well.
And is Beathard going to play?
As far as I know, beat hard. Yeah, he should be. He'll be a game time decision. But from everything that I've heard, that he should play tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. That's a doozy of a Thursday nighter there.
Raiders versus San Francisco. Woo!
Well, I mean, I've watched this game long enough to know games that you think are going to be great, like Green Bay and Kansas City last week, ends up not necessarily being great.
Well, I mean, the games like that, these Thursday night games that look like stinkers, why does everybody watch them? Right. Because you've got fantasy players involved. There's not
a lot of fantasy players involved at this point on those two teams. But
everybody's got Jared Cook on their roster. Some people have Marquise Goodwin. Some people have George Kittle. I mean, so there is some interest here.
But none of those are league winners necessarily. So
George Kittle
watching because it's 6 teams on bye week, and you need to use Kittle. Kittle hadn't had a good week in 3 weeks.
What are you talking about? He just had one 2 weeks, like not this past week, but the week prior. He had like a 20-point outing like 2 weeks ago.
Don't kid me. What about Tyreek Hill? Tyreek Hill has a groin issue. What is that?
He was supposed to be a full participant in practice today. Now, whether that actually happened or not, I'm assuming because I didn't hear anything to the contrary.
Anything else? So you think he's fine?
The initial reports was he was going to be out like 2 to 3 weeks, but apparently
I have Sammy Watkins on a couple teams. But I think Sammy Watkins actually is going to be better in the games where Tyreek Hill is healthy, even though every once in a while they just throw 100% to him, and then Watkins doesn't do anything. But I think when they're spreading it around like they did last week, I think he's actually going to do. He's going to have more big plays if Hill's in there, actually.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because you can't play Tyreek Hill with a single safety. I mean, or you can't just man up on Tyreek Hill. It has to be a safety over top.
Right. And then you have Hunt. I mean, it's a team that's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
And obviously when you have a quarterback that can throw and right now, to be honest, the key to him, to me, is he's not afraid to throw. That's the problem. You get quarterbacks with big arms and they're afraid. So that's a big deal. Quarterbacks. Let's talk about what's going on in Tampa Bay. Winston being benched for Fitzpatrick. I do believe Fitz gives them the best shot at winning this week. I just don't think it gives them the best long shot. I mean, I still think, you got to find out if Winston just has had a bad game or two, or if, because technically he's only played a few games. He was out for the first 4 or 3 and then a bye week. So, I mean, I don't know. I was a little disappointed that they sat him back to,
I'm not surprised, to be quite honest.
Okay, I'm not surprised, but these head coaches, the head coach here, the coaching staff, they're playing for their, if they don't, they need to win and not get fired. So they're going to play Fitzpatrick. But my point is, Fitzpatrick also can throw 4 interceptions in a game because he's done it.
Yeah, so he did it.
So that's my point. You're replacing one guy that does it with another guy that does it. So, yeah. And I still think Winston gives you a few other options. I don't know. For fantasy, obviously the big thing this week is Fitzpatrick. A lot of people have him in the top 12, that he's a starting quarterback fantasy because of bye weeks and everything.
Yeah.
I picked him up in one league. I had Winston in another league, and I decided to I had the option of I went ahead and went with Dak Prescott instead. I think it's a 2-quarterback league, and I have Aaron Rodgers. I'm hoping just for the running, all that. I'm looking more long term. I didn't want to just do a 1-week fix because quarterbacks in that league come and go a little crazy. So it's like, my options were Fitzpatrick and Dak, and I just thought I'd rather have something stable. Meaning I think Dak, unless it's an injury, obviously, I can ride him. My quarterback rating still isn't that bad because Aaron Rodgers is up fairly high. So, Dak, average out, I'm fine. I thought that was better than a 1-week fix. So, and that being said, we haven't been here since the Connor trade, or I think that happened last week when we Amari Cooper.
Yes.
And obviously they had a bye week. What are you expecting to see out of the Cowboys?
Most of the same. I mean, I'll be surprised to see how they wind up using Amari Cooper because over the past couple of years, it's been shown that Amari Cooper operates the best out of the slot, and they already have umpteen slot receivers. They've got Cole Beasley, who operates the best out of the slot. Allen Hurns operates the best out of the slot. Michael Gallup, like while he's a rookie, operates best out of the slot. He can play outside, and that's primarily what he did in college. But at least for rookie wide receivers, adjusting to press coverage at the NFL level is more difficult. So it's easier for them to shift into the slot where they don't actually see that type of coverage. So, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that they traded for a wide receiver of that type when they already have other wide receivers that can fill that same role. So if they're planning to use him on the outside as a perimeter receiver, you're not really utilizing him or like putting him in a place to win. So I won't be surprised to see much of the same, at least in terms of how the wide receivers, or at least how the wide receiver personnel operate. I mean, they're just going to have a new player out on the field, and it's going to be Amari Cooper.
I'm hoping he's out there and clears it out so that Zeke and Dak both can just run the ball. I would be happy with.
That's who the real winner is out of all of this. It's Zeke. That's who the real winner is. Is that now they have an actual. I mean, this is mostly anecdotal, right? Like you have a wide receiver that can make the defense pay attention to them, so Zeke isn't going to see 8-man or stacked boxes like every single down.
And for fantasy value, I think Zeke now has a chance if things go well and he finishes strong, because so many top drafted running backs have had issues. I don't think he's going to catch.
He's not going to catch Gurley.
I was going to say Gordon, but yes, it's Gurley. Gordon's injured and all that. So I think Zeke, but yeah, he's not going to catch Gurley. But at the same time, he's going to pay his value, which most of the people got him, in most cases worse, the middle of the first round. So
yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, but still, I don't know. Like, while I think there's a case to be made for top running backs or just top players in general not meeting their projections, but this year, absolutely. But I do think that the thing that fantasy owners don't really, I guess, get a sense of, or they don't value, is the volume that those players receive. So when it comes to Zeke, yeah, while he might not hit his projections, he might not be getting you 20, even 30 some odd points a game like Todd Gurley. He's still getting the volume necessary in order to get to that point. Right. So I think that is something that you can at least be, I guess, hopeful of, or at least you can bank on. You can bank that every week he's going to get his 20, 25.
Right. And I am one of those fantasy players that considers volume. If I don't see points, but I see volume, I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to take that into a game, knowing I've got a running back or a wide receiver that's gonna be involved.
Yes.
There's nothing worse than having to set your lineup going, I don't even know if this guy's going to, get
exactly
10 rushes, or I don't know if this guy's going to see 2 passes. Yeah. So I am one of those that sets my lineup in some cases, based on, not past as far as results, but how much have they seen action wise. So
exactly that's what I want to base my thought process on when I go to set my lineup. Like, yeah, I know Zeke hasn't really been putting down just a ton of like 20-25 point games, but is he going to get those 20-25 touches? If I can say yes every single time I click that submit for the roster button, then I'm okay with it.
Right. Are the Rams going to go undefeated?
I haven't looked at their remaining schedule, but I think there's no reason for me to believe that they can't. I mean, with the way that offense is running, Cooper Kupp goes down, they're still winning. They lose Aqib Talib off of the defensive side, still winning.
Yeah, but they are not in a very competitive division. So I'm looking it up. I think they are now the only undefeated team. Am I correct?
I can't think of another team that isn't undefeated. The only one I think that was fairly close to them at one point in time might have been the Patriots, I think. But even then, they lost one, right? Towards the beginning, they lost 2.
Yeah, they lost early on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else.
Chiefs lost 1.
Kansas City lost. I mean,
So
I
should
have pulled up records ahead of time, but
yeah, they're the only ones off the top of my head is that, at least in terms of high-powered offenses, because Saints have already lost a couple.
But I guess that's the thing. I mean, there are high-powered. I get that, but at the same time, I don't know. Golf doesn't amaze me, necessarily. Not like.
Really?
No, I don't know why. I'm just not.
I think maybe
it's from 2 years ago, or
still got that Jeff Fisher stink on him.
Maybe that's what it is.
I think for me, and this is where I nerd out about quarterbacks. Are their efficiency? They don't do like those flashy plays like Aaron Rodgers with those like late late game comebacks or anything like that. They're just steady Eddie. I mean, they're efficient throughout the entire game. They
have New Orleans this week. At New Orleans, so to me that's an opportunity for a loss. Then they have Seattle at home. Seattle's played a lot better last week, so I mean, who knows?
And those games they normally play them pretty tough. Those
and then they have Kansas City. So
that's a Super Bowl preview right there.
Yeah. Then they have a bye week, and they have Detroit, Chicago. The key one might be the Philadelphia game. That could also be a pretty important game for Philly at that point anyway.
Depending on where they're at.
They end with Arizona. So the problem with Arizona, the problem there would be is if you've got a lot of Rams on your team and they clinch before then, that Arizona game, you're not going to waste injuries playing in Arizona against a team that has nothing to play for.
Depends on if they're still undefeated, though. If they're still undefeated at that point.
I would give you that if they're undefeated, but at the same time, for fantasy, you don't always have that. That is a Week 16 game. I mean, that's your Super Bowl. So you know what? You at least got to think about it. And we're getting into that. I kind of was going to skip do's and don'ts, but my do was, now that the bye weeks are coming to a close in some. I know we have another 6 team coming up, but you know what? I have a team now where all my wide receivers after this week. All 4 of my starting quality wide receivers, their bye's over. So I don't need a 5th or 6th wide receiver. You know what I'm saying? So you start weeding those out, start looking at other things. But you know what? You definitely can start looking at, looking ahead. Kansas City could be the same way. Kansas City could be a team where at the end of the season, they don't have to play, everybody. So, you kind of got to look at that. And then it's the opposite. Teams that are or whatever, how much are they going to risk their top players and how much are their top players going to work, So that's those are things as a fantasy player. I start looking. I mean, like I said, I have Zeke and this week after their bye, I've picked up Rod Smith now, So, just because injury wise, you have to start preparing, and I don't need as much, depth on your bench once you get through bye weeks in certain positions.
Sure.
So, and like this is I normally don't carry 2 defenses, which I think the league I'm in with you, though, I have by accident. Actually, I dropped the Ravens. I dropped the Ravens. Couldn't go anymore, but I have another league where I picked up the Chargers. And I have a good defense this week, but the Chargers have 3 in a row, and hopefully Bosa comes back. They play like Arizona. They have like 3 games in a row where they play the 49ers. I think they play 49ers, Arizona, and I want to say I mean, they really, and I'm going to say, the Chargers have the ability to be a top defense in any given game, and Bosa comes back, and they're playing 3 terrible teams in a row. I went ahead and picked them up this week instead of waiting until next week and have to spend fab dollars or something like that. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't drop a wide receiver that I don't need anymore.
Right?
You got to check that. You got to look ahead of there a little bit. Let's go ahead and I guess because I did bring it up, let's stop there real quick. I have 2 quick things. The shootout that wasn't a shootout, which was the Green Bay and the Rams. What did you think? And it's a little different now that Ty Montgomery ended up being traded. What did you think about the controversy at the end with him running the ball out?
To be honest with you, I didn't know there was really much of a controversy until after the story started leaking. Now, whether or not it's true, I guess we'll never know. But I guess the Green Bay sending Ty away.
I thought that was a pretty good.
More or less. I mean, they sent him away for like a ham sandwich.
Yep.
So
I think like an 8th round pick in 2001 or something like that. It really was.
It was a 2027 is what they sent him away for. So it's like, I think that kind of confirms the stories that leaked out.
Now, his argument was, and I get that, people that, I don't say I don't play the game. I do athletic stuff, though. And you know what? Everyone says, oh, he should have known where he was at. But he even admitted, he goes, the ball was going to hit on or near the goal line. I'm not going to let it bounce there and then bounce forward. I've seen that. I've seen a ball hit and bounce the other. Meaning his argument was, I felt I was in, he was really in no man's land, but he thought he was close enough that he had to do that. And I see that point, even though the coaches are saying, he was told not to, let Aaron Rodgers win the game for us. We only need a field goal.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting, but and then when they traded him, obviously that did it. And the other day, 2 podcasts ago, I think, me, you got mad at me because I was anti-child with the Drew Brees family coming out for 27 minutes, and we hugged them 14 times. And
I thought I was the one that was anti-child because I thought that was way too long of a celebration. That was ridiculous.
All right. So here's my point. Here's where I'm going with this. What is more important and how do you win football games? Yards or points? I didn't think it was that hard of a question, Chris. Yards or points? How do you win football games? With more yards or more points?
Yeah, you win with more points.
Okay. So when the guy who breaks the record for the most points, what do? Nothing. We wave to him. We let a few extra players go out on the bench and wave to him and bring him off to the side. We move him off and we continue the game. The guy who broke the record for the most points, the thing that wins you games, not the most yards. He probably does hold the record for the most yards of balls in the air.
Yeah, that's true. So you're talking about Adam Vinatieri.
Vinatieri.
Let everybody know.
Right. I realize some people say that's not an important record, but bullshit. That is how you win the game. He scored the most points, and there was nothing. I mean, it really was. The announcers mentioned it a little bit, and then the TV. The game kept going on, but the TV cut in for Morton Anderson to say, "Oh, congratulations!" They knew he was going to break it. So, I'm like, I realized he didn't do it in his home stadium, so maybe it would have been different if it was in Indianapolis where Breeze did it in.
Yes.
But if you remember, someone from the NFL had white gloves and the certificate.
They were ready to take the ball and everything, yeah.
And it was yards. Just yards.
The whole thing was just bizarre.
Okay, so your argument is that Vinatieri's is what we should have done for Breeze. Neither one should have had a celebration, or at the minimum, so Vinatieri got a little bit of something.
Oh yeah, I think Vinatieri should have gotten something because if you're talking about an achievement that is Hall of Fame worthy, because I do believe, Vinatieri is getting into the Hall of Fame, and Vinatieri is getting into the Hall of Fame. Let's just put that to the side.
Right. Because he broke Morton, whose record he broke, Morton Anderson. He's in the Hall of Fame. And I think Ray Guy. I think those are the only 2 kickers. I didn't look it up.
I can remember off the top of my head.
The only 2 kickers. So I'm pretty sure that this is going to be at least the 3rd kicker.
And he should.
And, he's even lost a few big games. He's won a few big games. He's lost a few big games.
Yeah, but I do think that if we're going to have all this fanfare for a volume stat, which is what Drew Brees did, that's a volume stat, then I think that for something that should be, it's fundamental to the game, is scoring points, then the guy that has the most points, and not the most kicker points, the most points.
Right.
Then there should have been. I think the same level of fanfare should have been brought to that for that event as for.
Are we as fans to blame because we celebrate the pass and all that? Back to baseball. In baseball, we celebrate the home run king and all that. But Pete Rose for a long time now. I know he's a base hit king, but I think Pete Rose Pete Rose held the record for a long time for the most runs scored, meaning he crossed home plate more than anyone in the history of the game, and he held that for a long time if he doesn't still hold that. but people don't even talk about that. I mean, those are the kind of record, the thing that wins you the games. First, and I'll even say RBIs, the guy who makes the hit that scores the guy who runs, meaning runs and points, or goals or whatever we want to say. To me, those are the important things. That's how you win the game.
Absolutely.
And we don't celebrate those. We celebrate the long ball. We celebrate, the home run king, or the guy who hit the most home runs in a season hits 60. But the guy who, wins the most RBIs, you hardly hear about it. Now, I know baseball guys will, they know. He had 170 RBIs. That was great. It was most ever.
Sure, yeah.
But it's still not celebrated the same as the guy who hit 67 home runs. They don't break in. You've been alive during a couple big home run chases, and these, when McGuire and them did it, and they would they would come up to bat, they would break into news stuff. They would break in and say, hey,
that was like news. It wasn't just sports news. It was like it was actual news.
But if somebody was going to break the RBI record of 170 or whatever, I don't know what it is.
Nobody would care.
They would care, even though that's how you win games with RBIs. I mean,
that would be just sports news. It's like the priority that we place on some of these stats. It's just,
sports fans are idiots out there.
It's bizarre. I don't get it.
I don't know. I found that very amusing, and since we'd already talked about it, you know what? Like I said, we always get down to the last 10 minutes, and we get to talk about our topic. And our topic, and you know what? Like I said, I got in the middle of something today I didn't expect. I think I have most of them. Let's just go to the trades that happened during the trade deadline. I'll let you start. What ones? Let's try to stay fantasy. What are the most relevant fantasy deals, and who's affected in those deals?
The most, I guess, the biggest one, or the one that has the biggest impact, I think, has to be the Golden Tate one, right?
Oh, I think so. I think it affects the most fantasy players.
Right.
It affects quarterbacks to a point, because I think it makes Wentz a little more viable because he's got more targets. I do think it affects the Eagles' whole core, but to me a little lower. I think if anything, it kind of hurts Aguilar and Jeffries a little bit. So on that side, and then obviously on the the Lions side, it obviously helps our ex-Bengal Marvin Jones and Galladay, and the key there is they haven't been using the tight end a whole lot, but I don't know who else is going to get the ball there.
I would say, assuming health, Theo Riddick, because he can operate out of the slot.
Any update on his health? Is he going to play this week?
Limited practice today, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the most that I've heard about it so far.
I'd have trouble starting him anything other than a flex because of a bye week if I had no other options. But
that's the only format that I would ever feel comfortable with.
Easy tip of the day: if you don't have to start someone coming off of an injury, don't. It just almost never. You just can't wait. You've had him on your IR. You've had him. So he's finally coming back, and you put him in, and they just The odds are it's not going to pay off. But
exactly.
But this is a big bye week. I get it. But what do you think, Marvin Jones? Who do you think on the Lions side is going to benefit the most?
So far, everybody's all on the Galladay hype train, and that he's the one that's going to.
He's still a rookie. He's not a rookie, right? I keep calling him rookie. This is his second year, right?
Second year, correct.
He just didn't play a lot last year.
Right.
But Marvin Jones definitely looked good last week. Do you think that had something to do with the trade, or they just knew they needed to get out of that contract?
They just knew they needed to get out of that contract, and they weren't going to be able to re-sign him at the end of the year. So it was easy enough to move on from him now and make that trade with Philly. So, and it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. So I think from a business standpoint, I can get behind it. And then, but the thing that I thought was kind of odd, though, if Detroit really was looking at trying to make a run or think that they were going to be competitive for the rest of the season, they went out and they had already traded for Damian Harrison, Snacks from the New York Giants. So that was to bolster their defense. So then why would you trade away a key offensive piece if you're still thinking that if you're still trying to let the league know that you're trying to compete for this season?
Right.
So I did find it kind of bizarre. Great for Philly. Absolutely. But I just thought it was kind of odd from Detroit's standpoint, saying that you're going to rest your season on these two wide receivers that while they're good, I don't know if they're can carry your team to the playoffs type good.
Right. But he is at that age where wide receivers do tail off in a hurry. I mean, there's a lot. I agree with you. So I am arguing just to be arguing. When people say that, I always go, you know what, we just don't see practice. And sometimes coaches do make decisions on what they see at practice more than they do what happens in a game. But I don't know. I'm saying this is Luke Wilson's breakout moment. I think Luke Wilson, one of the Wilson brothers. His other brothers are actors and all that, and
see.
Poor Luke is stuck. A tight end.
He's an athletic freak, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of like
using him at all. They've not used him at all.
But I mean, that was the same. That was the same thing that he got when he was in Seattle. Was that he wasn't able to produce? I mean,
I had him at the beginning of the season as a breakout or a sleeper tight end. One of those I thought, you know what, because they would use Ebron here and there. Ebron would have a few big games. Ebron just didn't catch a lot of balls. There was games where Ebron would get thrown to 5 in a row and wouldn't catch any of them. That was a little. Obviously, he's making up for that now. So
he's making up for it on a new team. But
with Doyle comes back, we'll see. So
Doyle just played last week. He showed out. Played like 90% of the snaps.
And that's my point. But Ebron, I think, still got a touchdown pass, didn't he?
Yeah, that was pretty much all he had, though, in terms of targets.
Hey, for a tight end right now, that's better than
all you need. That's really all you need to be a top 10 tight end.
Gronk.
Yeah, he definitely did better than Gronk at that point.
So I am a Marvin Jones owner in 2 leagues. I was happy with the trade. I think it helps Marvin Jones a little bit, at least keep him away from those 7-point games. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm liking. I mean, I like the fact because he's obviously not my number 1 or number 2 wide receiver, but if my number 3 wide receiver gets a lot of looks and gets me, I just don't want him to get me those 2s and those 5s. Give me put up a 10 spot, put up a 12, depending on your scoring, that number might be 15, because I have 2 other guys to get me the 25. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, we were just talking about this earlier, is that we were looking at not just the fantasy production, but we would rather bank on volume. So Marvin Jones, just wasn't getting the volume. So if Tate was soaking up, like, let's say 7, 8, 9 targets a game, and now we can at least split them. Let's say Marvin Jones gets like 30% of that. So that's next. I think 3 targets a game.
9 targets, averaging 9 targets a game, or 8 point something. So those.
Yeah. So let's say at the very least, like Marvin Jones gets an extra 3 targets a game. So that bumps 4 to 5 to 7 to 8, somewhere in there.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard a stat, and I think one of the Sirius XM people. So I'm sorry, but I think I heard the stat where Marvin Jones, even before the trade, was the number 1 targeted wide receiver in the end zone. He obviously wasn't, there wasn't a lot of connection made or TDs yet, but because of his size, he still was the target that the Lions were looking for in the end zone. So now you take those targets. I don't think those go away, obviously, but now you add a few targets in the middle of the field. Yep. I definitely think he's a number 3 wide receiver now that you can put in and say, I'm done. He's had his bye week. If you have a couple other wide receivers, I mean, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, so I'm with that.
I actually personally right now would be more happy with him than Galladay. I think I'd rather have Marvin as my, meaning I think Galladay's going to have more 14s, 15s, or 20s once in a while, but I still think he's going to get a few 5s. I
can agree with that
because he may not get the touchdowns. So,
yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I think I think Galladay has the higher ceiling. I think Marvin Jones has a safer floor. How about that?
There we go. I'll buy that one. The next trade, would be where do you want to go? I guess because, like I said, I mean, it would
go DT.
Denver trade. I was just trying to think of is there any that were bigger than that? I mean, that one fantasy wise. I don't know. In my mind, this doesn't help or hurt anyone. And where do you go? You're my expert.
From at least from the Houston side, I think it just stabilizes Deshaun Watson's value.
Exactly.
It also stabilizes Nuke Hopkins' value, because it's not just defenses won't just be focusing. And again, this is all anecdotal, but again, without having, if Kiki Kuti isn't healthy, which, I mean, he's already had like 2 hamstring
But I
problems.
think he did practice today.
Yeah, he did practice, but we don't know about his availability. At the very least, he's probably not going to be 100% this weekend. So at the very least, it does give Deshaun Watson a safer floor in terms of his passing targets, even though he's only been passing like between 20 and 25 times a week over the past 3 weeks since he had that rib and like collapsed lung injury thing. So I think it gives the Houston offense some value. But now on the flip side, on Denver's side, I'm all about Courtland Sutton. I think that dude can ball. I think he was everybody knew coming into the season that Courtland Sutton was going to be the DT replacement, and he's already shown out a few games already this season. So I think Emmanuel Sanders, you can give him a couple more targets, and he was already showing out. So I think the offense, from Denver's standpoint, the value that you had for those players just increases. I mean, it gives Case Keenum like a better floor now. I think it definitely helps the entire offense at this point.
All right. I mean, I can't argue it, but Sutton versus Jones. Which one would you put in your number 3 and just leave?
Give me Jones.
I
Jones
agree. I agree.
Jones.
All right, we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
Chris,
give me Marvin. Give me Marvin. Yeah.
So I agree. And like I said, I think it helps Hopkins, because you don't have to worry about him as much. Because, I mean, defenses are still going to watch Thomas. I mean,
sure. Like he's not the same as Fuller. I mean, don't get me wrong. He is not a field stretcher like Fuller.
Right.
I mean, but in terms of being able to out physical other receivers and actually making sure that defenses are aware, because I don't think that Kiki Kuti, like he doesn't have that presence on the field.
Just say it again.
Kiki Kuti?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. He doesn't have the same presence on the field that Will Fuller has, where he can actually make defenses shift in his direction. And not to say that DT does, but he at least has some prowess on the field so that he can make, because he makes a ton of those tight window and contesting catches. I think Next Gen Stats said that he had one of the highest contested catch rates like in the league. So if Watson can still fit those balls in there, then yeah, I think he'll have to force defenses to account for him. I don't think he has that yet. And
I know we talked about him earlier. Ty Montgomery. I think obviously
a ham sandwich.
He wasn't playing a whole lot anyway. I mean, I don't think he was taking anything away. So I'm not sure this changes much on Green Bay at all, really.
It boosts Aaron Jones' value. It boosts Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams.
I think if anything boosts Aaron Jones' value is that they used him more this week. But I mean, that to me means more. And Ty Montgomery was on the team then. So, and I don't think Ty Montgomery going to our Ravens changes much there for the Ravens. I don't know. Like I said, I heard a couple people think today they just truly got him just to be a to be on their kickoff and punt team.
He could just be a special teamer.
And he obviously has skills if you have injury issues. I mean, to me, if you're a team that's maybe going to make the playoffs and it's going to be tight and you have a few running backs that are struggling or somebody gets hurt, you do have somebody that can take over. But
that's what Ty Montgomery would basically be. And I think, who is it? Marcus Grant from the NFL at Marcus G. I think he said it best. You weren't starting Ty Montgomery beforehand. You're not starting him now.
Right. I agree.
It changes nothing.
Yep, doesn't. I think offensive wise, was there any other trades? I think there were other kind of bigger trades were all defenses, may or may not help your defense, may or may not, hurt or help.
The Dante Fowler trade from Jacksonville to the Rams. So that one's actually pretty significant. I mean, definitely boosts their defense.
But they doesn't fantasy a whole lot.
No.
So my next question is, where I wanted to go quick because we're running out of time, was what about the trades that didn't happen? No quarterbacks got moved. There was, I'm trying to think of a few of the names we heard, and I'll just throw it. I mean, to you, what's the biggest trade that you think didn't happen that might have more fantasy relevance? I mean,
I'm surprised that there weren't any moves in terms of either the Giants or the Jaguars acquiring a quarterback. I heard that the Jaguars actually did inquire to both the Saints and I think one other team about if they could move a quarterback like their way. So there was talk about that, but I guess nothing actually came to fruition, obviously. But I do believe that was one of the trade rumors, I guess, or stories that came out after the deadline had already passed that there was some inquiries about Jacksonville made a couple of inquiries, if I'm not mistaken. So that, which I thought would have been pretty interesting if that would have happened.
And then you had Kyle Laletta, or however you pronounce his name. He was supposed to take some first team snaps, and instead he stays out too late and plays Grand Theft Auto.
And almost mows down the cop in the process.
In a full blown Grand Theft Auto mode there.
Yeah. Trying to hit those 5 stars.
Just run people over. I've done it before. I'm guessing there's bloody hooker shoes on the trunk somewhere. If we I don't know. It's not funny. I know it's not, but it's funny. I don't know. You have a guy who is in a position, to do something. This is the week where they came out and said the day before he's gonna get reps with the first team. Which I wasn't excited about. As a Beckham owner, I don't want to see that, because if anything, Eli is at least not afraid to check it up that one direction. So I think this helps. I think Eli now is definitely just going to finish out the Giants is the QB. I don't think they're going to set him.
That was a bizarre chain of events, because you see the same thing happened with the Broncos the previous week with Chad Kelly.
Oh, right, I forgot he did right. The same thing,
like getting drunk and then wind up on somebody's front porch, and then he gets released, and then because we already were hearing rumors of Case Keenum being on the outs with the Broncos. And then now you have this similar story with Eli Manning. Everybody's calling for his head, and then you've got Laletta behind him about to take first team snaps, and now this happens.
Is that athletes being too babied all the way up through their life? So you have these young guys that think they're going to be, NFL quarterbacks soon, and they just don't know when to be professional. Come on. I mean,
I don't know, man. I do not understand that, like how you get yourself in that type of position.
Cracks me up.
From what I had heard, actually, Chad Kelly he had a couple of other incidents in college, and then maybe one other instance while he was still with the Broncos that the team was trying to hopefully work with him. So I guess he's got some demons. So I'm hoping he actually gets that taken care of.
The last thing, and we'll get out of here because I found this interesting also in a different way. Doesn't affect fantasy, but we talked about the London games the other day. I don't know what's more amazing that 4 guys can go in. Is it harder to accumulate a tab? And I've heard $40,000 to $60,000 tab.
Yeah.
Is it, so whose fault is that? Who lets somebody run up that kind of a tab without a credit card or something?
If they're celebrities, they might just let them do it on credit.
These 4 weren't celebrities. So my point is, one, where are you going where you drink and spend $40,000 where they're not, making you account for it ahead of time? And then 2,
they buy models.
When you're buying that kind of stuff, I'm assuming when you spend $40,000 on alcohol or up to $60,000, depending on which news release, you're buying enough that maybe you don't remember leaving without paying. But I don't know. Again, another fascinating story of one, you're on a business trip. I've been to Vegas for fun. I've been to Vegas on a business trip. On the business trip, I do rattle myself in just a little bit because, even on my off time, I'm representing something, but I think they did this on Friday night and didn't play till Sunday. A lot of people thought it was, I think it all happened Saturday morning, meaning late Sunday night or Friday night. So it wasn't that they went out drinking to play the next day. They were going to have a day off. So it was Friday night for them, and all this happened technically early Saturday morning, I think after midnight, Friday. But, that is a lot of, I don't know, or am I wrong? Can you buy 4 drinks at $10,000 each? Maybe
I don't know what type of drinks those are. I've never seen those before.
Me. I mean, I've drank some $10 bottles of beer on our beer show before, and I've done a few things, but
that $10 was not $10,000.
What is the most? What is an expensive drink? I don't even know. I know there's some champagnes, right? I know there's some champagnes and some whiskeys that are way up there. But $40,000. That's $10,000 a piece, and I'm still talking the low end, of what the numbers are.
We'll have to. Maybe Joey knows. We'll have to ask Joey.
I have to ask him what you can go in and order that will
for $40,000. what are you buying?
Right. It cracks me up. Me up. We appreciate all of you out there in the chat room, people who came out tonight. It was a hectic night for Easy, that's for sure.
Sounds like, man, go get you some dinner.
I am. I got leftovers. I'll be fine. I got a Heineken halfway. I'll be fine. But the Legend Sports Network, Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com. Again, tomorrow morning at 9:00, they will be talking baseball. So come out. Again, on Thursday at 2:00, JJ Wirtz has his sports show. His sports show, he does talk all type sports. So, tune in and enjoy that. And then obviously, I'm telling y'all, you have to stop in at 7:00 on a Thursday night and listen to Thursdays. It's a little crazy. You can go to LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. You can hit the podcast. You can listen to past ones if you want to get prepared for what's going to happen live. But the live experience is by far the best one. And yes, we had the AA is the Cubby's the host, and AA though is the topic. I guess I don't even know what they're co-hosts.
Oh boy.
AA last night in the round table, which we do on video, he changed costumes 4 times last night. He was Spider-Man once. He was the dragon lady from Game of Thrones. I'm trying to think what else. It was hysterical. I mean, it was pretty funny. So check out Thursday tomorrow night at 7 at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Join the chat room. Sign in. We finally got Chris out there. There are people out there almost all day long answering questions, talking sports. Chris, before we go, repeat one more time where people can find you or shoot you a note.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX, and all of my writing should be on 4for4.com.
All right. And this is Easy Kill. You can catch me here Wednesday nights, pretty much around 9:30. Fantasy fan, talking sports, mainly fantasy. I have a blast. This is fun, Chris.
Absolutely.
I will see you next week. And again, you're welcome to the round table. You're welcome to the Sunday sit start. I think you were in the chat room. Was that this Sunday where you weren't on the show or in the chat room, or that was last?
I popped in.
I think you popped in.
Yeah, popped in for a little bit.
Because I never know when there's going to be weather issues. And I know you're more up to date on that. So if you're out and about, or pop in and bring us some weather things. So you can catch me there on Sundays with Lou Landers. Again, love talking fantasy. Chris, I'll see you at a minimum in a week.
Yeah.
Say good night.
Night.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say good night. Good night.